You know, thanks to Netflix, basically about a month and a half ago, a little over a month ago I should say, finally putting the last season of Mystery Incorporated, the most controversial Scooby-Doo cartoon series yet, and in recent memory. You know, on the streaming apps, if you will, I contemplated and finally, just a little bit ago, about an hour or so ago, decided to watch the finales, the final 2 episodes. And whether you like the series or not, or whether you've watched the series or not, I will say this: these final 2 episodes do indeed make you intrigued to want to watch the series and see exactly what led up to it if you haven't watched it. And even if you didn't like it, you can at least say that in a sense, these last 2 episodes, is basically 44-minute to an hour finale, was good. Because it had its moments. If you're a Fred, Velma, Shaggy, Daphne shipper, you know, basically if you're a fan of the Daphne Shaggy shipping pairing and Fred and Velma pairing shipping, you had your moment, if you will, in the middle of the final episode when they both split up into 2 groups and Fred was with Velma and Daphne was with Shaggy. So you had your moment there. Excuse me. But overall, I will recommend, I'm not going to give much away, but I will recommend that even if you don't like the series, at least watch these 2 episodes. They're worth it. But the one thing I can say, and it's right here, the final 8 minutes, because that's the way I look at it, final 7 to 8 minutes of the Scooby-Doo or SDMI finale was confusing, but also proved was confusing, wasn't really necessary, and basically showed, and I guess basically how do I put this, basically just stated that the entire 2 seasons that you watched SDMI on Cartoon Network was nothing more than a prelude. That this entire new Scooby-Doo series, this SDMI, for the past 2 seasons, was nothing more than a prelude to the original Scooby-Doo run. That's what the final 7 to 8 minutes did. Why? Well, these are spoilers, so if you haven't watched the episode yet, fair warning. If you haven't, fair warning right now. Okay, you want to hear the spoilers? That's fine, it's up to you. If you don't, hopefully you've turned down the volume by now. But basically, in the final 7-8 minutes after Mystery Incorporated defeated the evil entity, they returned back to what seems to be a restored Crystal Cove. And then even though they're happy that everything seems to be back to normal and everybody seems to be safe and sound again, basically, you know, not dead, not shot up or anything like that, not blown up, eaten, absorbed, whatever you want to call it, that basically they start noticing that there are several differences. Like, the first difference they bump into is the sheriff, who seems to have always been on their case and a bit cranky, is now nicer and is married to the mayor, the more recent mayor of the original timeline, the one that supported Mystery Incorporated, basically is married to her and they have kids. And it throws Mystery Inc. off, especially when the mayor, she reminds Daphne, oh, by the way, you promised to babysit, you know, the next night. And then that's not the only difference they see. They see that the sign no longer says Crystal Cove, the hauntiest place on Earth, or the most haunted place on Earth. It now says the sunniest place on Earth. Excuse me. They notice that. And then, to top it all off, to figure out what's really going on, they go to all their parents that they know are now alive again. And they see that a lot of things have changed. They find out that Fred's parents have never been trap masters, that they're basically nutritionists. They find out that Daphne's parents are supportive of her relationship with Fred, and that along with Fred's parents are planning their wedding because they're close to 18, and this surprises Daphne and Fred. They're like, huh? You know? And then we see Daphne's sisters, who in the previous timeline were successful overachievers, are now underachievers, basically not successful, and Daphne's the successful one. Then we go to Shaggy, and we find out that Shaggy, in this new timeline, unlike the other timeline, has basically achieved a multitude, and I apologize, that's my phone interfering with the Xbox. But we find out that Shaggy in this timeline, unlike in the other timeline, has achieved all these accomplishments, has been a multiple chef winner and this and that. He's won all these accomplishments, all these awards involving cooking food and stuff like that. And then, and his mom's a lot nicer. We see that. And then we see on the television that Angel Dynamite, if you will, Angel Dynamite, is now married to, I guess, the Shaggy of the Mystery Inc. group at the time, maybe? Of that original Mystery Inc. group, before the Scooby-Doo one, in the original timeline. I know, it sounds confusing. And she's now married to that guy, seemingly, it looks like. And that Pericles, the one that's been causing all the trouble, is now a nice bird without a scar. And then we go to Velma, and she finds out from her friend, she tries to find out information from her friend, and her friend's saying, hey look, we need to focus on the Olympia Science Fair that they've won multiple times over, and finds out that the project is obviously a lot different than what was in the original timeline. And this suddenly wakes up a revelation in Velma as to what's really going on. And then we finally see what happened to the original Mayor Jones, Fred's stepdad. We find out that he's now a high school soccer coach or athletics coach, and that he's a lot nicer, and that he doesn't mind being called Mayor Dad now. He doesn't mind being called Mayor Dad, and because he's always looked at the kids at the high school as his own children. And he also gives Fred a disc from a university. So, long story short, basically after convening back together, Velma basically explains that, hey, after we went and defeated the evil entity, not only did we restore everything back to normal, but we also rewrote history. We altered the timeline to the point that the evil entity never existed. That because it never existed, there was no influence on anybody. That everybody that was influenced in the original timeline is not influenced. You know, that things are different. Things are peaceful. Happy, if you will. Sunny, if you will. And because of this, they come to realize that they can't stay there anymore. Because not only did they rewrite history, alter the timeline, but every mystery they've ever solved, even the mysteries they mentioned about, that Velma talked about at the beginning of the pilot episode of the series, those mysteries, along with the mysteries they went through and, you know, uncovered and solved, and the people they unmasked, all that never happened. All that became non-existent. They basically, because of what they did, they wiped that out. And now they live in a place where there's no mysteries. And they realize because of who they are, Mystery Inc., they can't stay there. And then they find out by watching the CD, or the DVD, if you will, the DVD-ROM, that Fred got, that the Mr. E character, who I guess is now thinner and I guess has a bit of a intelligent, I'm a genius ego, basically states that, hey, along with you guys, I somehow survived the timeline too. Because he's I guess now psychically connected to all alternate timelines. And that, like him, because he's surprised by this, and finds it strange, they too survived and remembered the previous timeline. And that he's already offered and admitted them into the university and into his class at that university. So now they make the decision to say, hey, we can't stay here anymore. This isn't our lives anymore. These new lives that we have, these are not really ours. So they come to the decision that the only way they're going to be Mystery Inc. is to go to the university and along the way solve every mystery they come in contact with. As they head up there, as they head in that direction. And basically what they do is they remodel the Mystery Inc. van back to what it was in the original timeline. And then after Nova thanks Scooby for doing what he did and saying he's the bravest dog she's ever met, we see them riding off into the sunset, Scooby doing his Scooby-Doo signature saying, and then we hear a laugh track. A laugh track. And, I know some people were talking about that and wondering if maybe that was true or not, or maybe people were hearing things. No, it's true. There was a laugh track. Which basically states that the last 7 to 8 minutes of this entire series, of this entire 2-season run, this 2-season controversial run, that the last 7 to 8 minutes basically told us it was nothing more than a prelude to all the Scooby-Doo incarnations that started back in 68, 69, and ended in 1987. And ended around 1986-87. That's right. All the incarnations that came afterwards, from Where Are You?, the new Scooby-Doo movies, Scooby-Doo show, which introduced us to Scooby-Doo and Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show, the all-new Scooby-Doo Scrappy-Doo show, which introduced us to Scooby's family, and Whoopsie-Doo, and his cousin Whoopsie-Doo, and Yabba-Doo, if you were his western cowboy-like cousin. The new Scooby-Doo Mysteries, which introduced us to Dixie-Doo and his cousin Dooby-Dooby-Doo. And then 13 Ghosts. Yeah. 13 Ghosts, which I'm looking at right now. A series I have was nothing more that I have basically now, because of the final 7 to 8 minutes, is nothing more than something that happens after Mystery Incorporated. Because the writers decided to use the last 7 to 8 minutes to basically say, this is a prelude. That this entire 2 seasons was a prelude. And it makes you wonder why people who never liked the series, or even those that like the series, are pissed off. I mean, you basically got 2 sides of the fences that have come together and said, you basically spent 2 years to tell us that this Mystery Incorporated show, this new Scooby-Doo show, is nothing more than a prelude to the original incarnation. That basically the 7 to 8 minutes, with everything restored and altered, it's just shown that this is nothing more than a prelude. You know, it's no wonder why some fans are pissed. It's no wonder some fans are like, you know what, enough's enough, kind of deal. Stop this crap. Excuse me. Now, I can understand wanting to surprise people and put a twist on things, and that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead and do that. It works. I'm not going to say it doesn't. And I'm not saying this didn't work, because it did. But could they at least given us a hint that maybe this was a prelude? Maybe shown some kind of like an Easter egg indicating, oh, by the way, this may be before everything else. But they didn't. They decided, hey, last 7 to 8 minutes, let's just make all the past 2 years, all the past 25, all the past, 52 episodes, if you will, 31 chapters, if you will. Let's make it all for naught and say that this was all nothing more than a prelude to the original Scooby-Doo incarnations. Now, when one thinks about that, one can get mad. One can be pissed. And I don't blame them. I really don't. But when I think about it, yeah, it's a unique twist. It's something that really came unexpected, especially if you saw it for the first time. But I also look at it like this. There is some good that comes out of it. I know that sounds crazy, but there's some good. If you're let's put it this way. If you're a Shaggy and Daphne shipper, basically you want these two to be together, then you got to look at it from a positive standpoint. That if this was indeed a prelude to all the other Scooby-Doo incarnations that started back in 1969 and ran all the way up to about 1987 with 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, then this is pretty much a good sign. Because this pretty much says, the writers pretty much say in the last 7 to 8 minutes here, that not only was this entire two-season run of the Mystery Incorporated a prelude to the other to the previous incarnations that started in 1969. It started all the way back in 69 and ran all the way up to 1987. But in a sense, the writers are also saying that everything you now see, everything you've seen from not only these last 7 to 8 minutes, not only do they somewhat connect to Where Are You and all the other incarnations that came afterwards, but they're saying everything that came after Mystery Incorporated, now that it being nothing more than a prequel, especially with the last 7 to 8 minutes, everything that comes after it, from Where Are You, the movies, the Scooby-Doo show, Scrappy-Doo, Scrappy-Doo show, all the Scooby-Doo, Scrappy-Doo show, Mysteries, 13 Ghosts, it's all canon. Yeah, it's all canon. And that basically everything that's come, basically it's all canon. That's what it is. And that basically all the movies are basically one-shot movies. When it comes to shows, everything is canon. So in a sense, if you're a fan of Daphne-Shaggy pairing, they're pretty much saying, in a sense, in their own unique way, Daphne and Shaggy are a pairing. I know it sounds crazy, but it's those little details, it's those little Easter eggs, those little hints you got to look at, and you got to look at that, and the only way you could find that and look at it is from that positive outlook. And that's the way I look at it. I'm a fan of I'm a fan and supporter of Shaggy and Daphne being together. I think they make a cool couple, don't get me wrong. And I think, when I think about it, that's exactly what these last 7 to 8 minutes are saying. That everything that starts from there and goes into Where Are You and all the other shows that I've mentioned are canon. Are indeed canon. So in other words, they're acknowledging with these last 7 to 8 minutes and pretty much this entire Mystery Incorporated deal that, hey, later on, basically back in the 80s, when we brought Daphne back to be with Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy, and made her and seemed to make her that basically really support Daphne's Shaggy as a pairing. That's the way I view it. I know some people might view it differently, but that's the way I look at it. So, pretty much, you know, like I said, the two-part finale was decent, worth watching, even if you don't like the show or if you're interested in watching it. But the last 7 to 8 minutes definitely says a lot, not just for this series, but for the previous incarnations from 69 up to 86, 87. For basically the original 17 years of Scooby-Doo before things changed, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, pretty much that's the way I look at it, and you know, let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with some of the things I said? I know it sounds a little confusing. I know it's hard to follow, but that's what I think. What do you guys think? I'll talk to y'all later. God bless. Take care. I'm gonna try to get some sleep now. Comments as well.